What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Pazza Podcast. It's been a couple weeks. Needed some time off after that horrendous showing in Munich versus Paris Saint-Germain. The 5-0, now I guess famous disaster that us Nerazzurri had to go through. Well, it was an absolute disaster. But the good thing, depends on how you look at it, didn't take long for us to get a chance at redemption with the Club World Cup starting. Today's Monday. It started on Saturday, I believe, with Inter Miami hosting Al Hilal, actually, funnily enough. So not long to try and redeem ourselves over that embarrassment in Munich. So we are going to jump into kind of what our thoughts are. I usually do post-match kind of thoughts on the game that just occurred, but since the game is occurring on a Tuesday this week and I work, it's a little more difficult, especially with a 9 p.m. kickoff here Eastern Standard Time in the States, to provide a post-match. I usually go to bed at like 8:45, 9 p.m. anyway, so this is going to be really tough, these 9 p.m. kicks for me, having to wake up for work at 5 a.m. the next day. So we're going to switch this up this time for a pre-match kind of preview. And I mean, with all the stuff that's happened over the last few weeks, it kind of works out. So we're going to dive in. It's going to be a little shorter episode. And yeah, we're going to probably keep it this way. Well, we got a match on Saturday, I believe. So maybe we'll be able to do a post-match reaction on Sunday and then preview that final match versus River Plate, I believe. So yeah, getting in what has happened really with Inter, with this club since the 5-0 destruction that we've mentioned already in Munich. First things first, some good news we'll start with, depending on who you, look at or ask. Best, great news that we got as Interisti for the past 2 weeks is that Joaquin Correa is officially gone. He is off the books. I can't remember who posted it, one of the many Inter accounts I followed, about how with Correa on the squad, we have not won a Scudetto, but whenever he's not in the squad the last 5 years, we have. Next year, no Correa, so, hopefully that trend continues. Also leaving us, unfortunately, you guys know if you've listened and watched, it's kind of a joke, but also I did really think that this player got a lot of harsh criticism that he didn't fully deserve. And as far as striking options off the bench, I thought he was our best one coming off the bench. Unfortunately, Marko Arnautovic, our Lord and Savior, Lord Arna, is no longer with Inter as well. 2 players over 30 didn't impact as much as we had hoped coming off the bench in relief for Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram are now officially off the books. So that's good news. We are definitely getting rid of the dead weight, it seems, trimming the fat, as my friend Corey in our group message referred to it. And with those two leaving for at least this Club World Cup, we've brought in Pio Esposito, the Player of the Year, or Capocannoniere for Serie B, probably Player of the Year for Spezia, young 19, 20-year-old player, does the muscle as his celebration after scoring, and he's one of the brighter prospects in all of Italy from the striking position. A lot of clubs, top clubs, are looking for him, and Inter has him tied down until 2030. I believe we will see him probably used in bargaining with other clubs this summer. We'll do kind of like a Fabian, where we'll sell him to lower the price for one of our targets, and also insert a buyback clause. That's probably good for 2 to 3 years or whatever. Or we might loan him, a dry loan, for a season to still lower the cost of whoever we're looking at trying to negotiate with the club. His brother, Sebastiano Esposito, we all know, scored that PK that Lukaku let. He has a goal for Inter. Lukaku let him score a PK. I believe that was in a Champions League match, if I remember correctly, or maybe Coppa Italia. So he has an Inter goal. He's represented Inter, spent last season at Empoli. Decent player. So we got them 2. And then Valentin Carboni is coming back from Marseille. Unfortunately, tore his ACL early while he was there, but he's a very promising prospect. They had a $40 million agreement to buy him. So, $40 million fee is pretty big for someone who is just a prospect, only a handful of senior caps. He did go on loan to Monza before that. So exciting times for this Club World Cup. Seeing these players come in. We've also brought in 2 players, Peter Sucic and Luis Enrique. Some things to look for that. Peter Sucic got huge. We'll come to that later on. But yeah, Peter Sucic, midfielder from Croatia, and Luis Enrique, winger/wingback, Brazilian from Marseille as well. So they're younger. I think Sucic is 21. Luis Enrique might be 23. So we're replacing a 36 and a 31-year-old. Those 2 have left, and we've brought in 2 younger players. I think that's a trend we're going to see throughout the summer. Another thing everybody knows, and it was one that sent everybody into panic. This club, man, we can never have anything. Pazza Inter, I've said it many times, Conte tried to get that out of the club. And then when he left, that was a Pazza Inter scenario. But it just seems like anytime any continuity or anything good that this club has going for it for a little bit, we don't get it for long, whether it's been Mourinho leaving right after we win the treble, Conte coming in, leading us to a Scudetto after 2 seasons, and then bailing on the club because we couldn't invest like he had wanted to. And then, now with Inzaghi sending us all the way 2 out of the past 3 seasons to the Champions League final. And then the way that it ended, going out 5-0 in one of the worst performances, if not the worst performance, not only for Inter, but in any Champions League final in history, losing 5-0 in a historic defeat, and then bailing out within a couple of days. Rumors that maybe he had agreed pre-match with Al Hilal for the 26 million euro a year fee that he agreed, and maybe that's why the game plan went all to shit there in Munich. But yeah, we can't have anything go just normally with this club. It's Pazza Inter, it's in our DNA, and Inzaghi left for Al Hilal. Touch a little bit on what his legacy, despite the nasty breakup that occurred here over the past 2 weeks, you can't underestimate what Inzaghi, or I guess, overstate what Inzaghi did for this, not only this club, but for some of these players that are with the club now and who have become superstars under Inzaghi. He came at a time, like we mentioned, with Conte leaving, where there was a lot of uncertainty with the club. Wasn't sure what direction the club was going to go in, with the rumors of all of the financial instability from Suning, which we know to be true now, having to sell the likes of Lukaku and Hakimi to, stay afloat. The whole craziness, another Pazza Inter, Christian Eriksen, with his, heart situation, where he couldn't play in Serie A because due to the Serie A rules, the league rules, players with a defibrillator in their heart can't play. I think Eduardo Bove can't play in the Serie A. He's probably gonna have to look elsewhere, the Fiorentina player. But yeah, his legacy for me, he came in during that era or that time, and had the hindsight once Brozovic left a season later to move Çalhanoğlu back into that position where he became a top player for a couple seasons. We saw players like Marcus Thuram come in who upped his game, maybe even a better partner with Lautaro than Lukaku was. We saw older players like Edin Dzeko who came in and really thrived in this Inzaghi system. Francesco Acerbi coming in, really thriving. Henrik Mkhitaryan came in and really revitalized his career. We saw players like Denzel Dumfries and Federico Di Marco really become talked about in these conversations as world-class players on the wingbacks. Lautaro and Barella and Bastoni really being mentioned in these words of world-class players under Inzaghi, and a lot of progress on that. But we also saw, pissing away two Scudetti, one to Milan, and this past season to Napoli. We also saw two Champions League finals, the runs, and then coming up short both times. First one to Manchester City in their treble winning season, and then this last one in the way that it did against PSG. So I think his legacy will be, once the dust settles from all the disappointment and anger of the way he left recently, I think when we look back, we'll mention Inzaghi as one of Inter's most historic and best managers of all time. He's not going to be mentioned with Helenio Herrera and Jose Mourinho, obviously, due to them winning the Champions League. That puts them on a tier above Inzaghi. But I think we can mention him above Antonio Conte. And maybe he's on the same as a, Trapattoni or a Roberto Mancini. He's definitely above Spalletti and, some of these other managers that came in and had success, but he's not on that tier. I think Inzaghi will be known as, probably our third or fourth best manager of all time, depending on how you rate him and Roberto Mancini or whatnot. Some people probably put Antonio Conte pretty high up there. I think if you look at his body of work for Inter, he doesn't have that much of a sample size, being only 2 seasons to really put him. But Simone Inzaghi has, 5 seasons? 4 seasons. So he's got a pretty decent sample size, and depending on what he did, the trophies he brought, we should have won more, but you can't understate what he did for this club due to all the financial, strains and whatnot he was put under. So I was very disappointed with Inzaghi a couple weeks ago, but now since the dust has kind of settled a little bit, maybe it was time. Maybe this will be for the best. And that brings in a new era, which is going to be my next point, is that we have a new manager. It is treble winning star player. Wouldn't really say star, but treble winning player from Romania. We all remember him with the headgear. Really, really solid player, solid but unspectacular, very consistent. And now he starts his journey as Inter manager, Cristian Chivu, the Romanian. And, there was a lot of rumors once Inzaghi left. We were scrambling, especially with the Club World Cup coming up as quickly as it was after the season and how quickly Inzaghi left. There were rumors of Fabregas from Como, rumors of Patrick Vieira from Genoa. We saw a whole bunch of different names getting thrown around there, but eventually we settled with, well, I don't even want to say settle. Eventually we landed and got our man Cristian Chivu, and I think it's a good decision. We mentioned last time how it was exciting to be an Inter fan right now, despite that loss, that historic loss, all the stuff that's going on with the club, with Oak Tree being in charge instead of Suning, the core players that we have that are younger, not younger, but under 30, Lautaro, Barella, Bastoni, Thuram, Pavard, Di Marco, Dumfries, all these players that, we don't have to replace a good group core that we have. We just need to bring in younger, more exciting players, a new stadium being built. So it's an exciting time, and I don't think we needed to change that much. If we would have brought Fabregas or Vieira in, we would have had to change formation probably back to a back 4. Bringing Cristian Chivu, we get to keep that back 3 more than likely. We'll see exactly where he's going to take this club. But I think for the transition that we're going through right now, it's a 2-year contract. He's not going to change too much, as having worked under Inzaghi, being the Primavera coach under Inzaghi for a few years. So I think it's going to be good for the club not to drastically change and whatnot. And we'll see. I'm excited to see Cristian Chivu. Like I said, he's an Interisti, so that is very important to bring in someone who actually cares. Fabregas is an up-and-coming good manager, but he doesn't have that loyalty and that passion for Inter like Chivu will. Patrick Vieira was here for a couple seasons, but maybe he would have brought some passion and Inter, whatever. But I think Kivu is a manager that's going to continue upon what Inzaghi has built and hopefully add a little bit different spice and flair to not have us kind of repeat what happened this past season as far as just a lot of games. It was just a lack of almost inspiration is what it looked like from these players. So maybe a new voice coming in, the continuity of keeping that formation, but a new voice coming in, maybe with some different ideas and whatnot, is going to be good for the club. So shout outs to Kivu. Guys, let's support Christian Kivu. He is one of us. And, until something drastically bad happens, we need to give this guy full support and the full backing of the fan base. So grande Kivu, we're behind you. Other things that are happening, it's a lot of exciting things happening. It sounds like, depending on if you believe a lot of the rumors we're seeing, seems like we're getting rid of, like what I said, the dead weight, the trimming the fat, as my friend Corey was saying. Taremi, Acerbi, Darmian, Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan, all these players above 30, rumors to be on their way out. There's players like Rasmus Højlund from Manchester United, former Atalanta striker. I think a lot of Interisti are probably 50-50 on whether or not they think this is a smart move to make. I really like it because if you look, I don't think Lautaro really, since he's taken the starting position 4 or 5 years ago, has had really anybody behind him pushing him for this starting role. He had Alexis Sanchez there for a while, but I think it still was Lautaro's to lose, especially the first time when Alexis was there. Not the second time so much, but it still was Lautaro. Didn't have much pressure. And then last season, with Arnautovic, Correa, Taremi, none of them were really threatening his starting role. Rasmus Højlund is going to bring something, a lot more speed than Lautaro will, and a little bit of more dynamism. So this will be good, especially if we just get it initially for a loan for a season with the option to buy next season. I think this would be a really good thing for both player. Højlund needs to get out of Manchester. I think anybody who's in Manchester right now for United needs to get out of Manchester. He has success in Serie A. He has Serie A experience. And I think the club needs someone like him to really push Lautaro and also give Kivu a player that comes on and brings energy, life, and something different if we need it. So I'm all for the Rasmus Højlund links, especially if we get it on an initial loan and then an option to buy, not an obligation to buy. We'll see where that one goes. Boni, I think, is going to be from Parma, is going to be a great player in the future, needs to up his scoring a little bit, but he's going to be more of like a vice Thuram, and Thuram's going to be the out-and-out starter, but when Boni comes in, he offers energy, pace. If you remember when we played them that last match 2-2, he absolutely sat Bisek down a couple of times and really should have had a goal against us. So very exciting to see him come in. He's going to be a very good vice Thuram, and it looks like that deal is going to happen after the Club World Cup. We've seen there's reports now that Çalhanoğlu is very not close, but in talks with Galatasaray, going back to Turkey, and there's rumors of Rovella coming in for him, or Bernabe from Parma. We'll see. Bernabe scored against us. Haven't really watched much Parma, so don't know much about him, but I know he kind of has the build and stature of a Vitinha. So if he's going to be a deep-lying playmaker, and one thing that really impresses me about Vitinha versus, what we got from Çalhanoğlu, and a lot of different, you can even see it with a lot more of deep-lying playmakers. Vitinha brings something to the plate a lot different, where he is constantly on the move, which is something all good deep-lying playmakers do, but he has the ability to somehow dribble in and out of tight spaces deep like that and create space through his dribbling, which is something we don't see really often with, Çalhanoğlu. So I think maybe Bernabe would give us something like that coming from Parma. He kind of has that, from what I've seen, that type of influence on a game. Nowhere near like Vitinha, but he has that in his arsenal potentially. So we'll see. Or Rovella, who I really like. A lot of people are calling one of Italy's bright up-and-comers from the midfielder. He's played top-flight football for a long time, whether it be for Juve or Lazio. He's got the experience. He's going to come at a higher price tag, though. So we'll see where really that takes us. We have interesting names coming for who we might want as a center back, a younger center back. Leone from Parma, again, really young, promising. We've been looking at him for a while. He is one of those future Italy center backs that is really being talked about and hyped up. And then Mosquera from Valencia has had a lot of top flight experience, only being 20, 21 years old. So we'll see. It's exciting stuff that we're getting these younger players linked with us versus, these older Arnautovic, Correa, Taremi type players. So it's exciting stuff right now. And then finally, another great thing that's happened is Oaktree bringing financial stability to this club. They just announced last week the paying off of the 400 million bond that Suning took out. Basically, from what I've gathered and understood, they paid it off so they could refinance at a better rate than what they had. What that sounds like to me is that they're trying to get this club financially in a good spot, with doing this, having a way better rate for this bond, lowering the age of the squad, and then announcing and being very vocal. And there's a lot of news about the new stadium in San Siro that's going to be built in the next few years. This shows me or signals to me that they are raising the value of this club strategically, smartly, to sell it and make it more attractive for potential suitors. So, you're not going to dilute or make something shittier if you're trying to raise the value. So I think we are going to see a lot of progressive moves and ambitious moves from Oaktree in the short term to find a great potential suitor to sell the club. And I think it's going to be a big name, hopefully, in the next couple of years when we do sell, because the Serie A league is growing pretty big, not only globally, but specifically in the States. Over half of the ownership is States ownership, United States ownership, Americans. There's a big following coming out of America with Serie A. Particularly, I think that's spawned by Paramount Plus. They're great coverage, albeit being a shitty app on the Roku. It's very difficult and cuts out a lot. The coverage and the way they've gone about building the brand of Serie A has been very good for Americans here stateside. And then just the overall culture. We do have in America a big Italian-American culture, and it's very prominent, especially in bigger cities where the bulk of population is. And it's going to be an attractive league, I think, more so in America moving forward, especially with the staleness that the Premier League has kind of offered over the past few years, with City winning it and then Liverpool running away with it. This past season, City winning 4 or 5 in a row, and just the football, the roboticness of the football in the Premier League, whereas Serie A, just the passion and the drama that you get with every game, whether it's Parma versus Cagliari or whatever, you're gonna have that drama, especially next season with Maurizio Sarri being back, smoking those heaters on the sideline. It's something that America hasn't seen really, and with this huge bulk and uptick in culture or coverage here in the States for Serie A, it's an exciting time to be not only a Serie A fan, but Inter fan with these moves that Oaktree is making. So despite, the disappointment of the 5-0 defeat, I think, we're heading in the right direction as a club. And I can't be more excited to be an Inter fan right now. It's one of the more exciting times over the last 20, 25 years of being a fan that I can remember. So really, really fun stuff. And we'll now move to, I forgot to mention the U23 team too. That's another thing that Oaktree has instilled to bring some more stability and trying to get Inter to where we can compete on the level with these global clubs and stuff. You see Manchester City's, Barcelona, PSG's, all these clubs, Real Madrid, who have a good funnel talent system, Juventus, who have a good, youth tunnel talent system. And this U23 team is just a step in that direction for Inter as well. So very exciting stuff. And then now we can get to finally the preview of what to expect from this Club World Cup. I think people who aren't familiar with how football, or as we call it here in the States, soccer, is viewed. Any people who watch who are not American or from a different country, give you a little background, soccer stateside. It's football here, and we obviously call it soccer because we have American football, but football here is viewed as, especially in the southern states where I've grown up and spent my whole life. It's a little more different out west and up north. But in the South, football is viewed as very much what's the best way to put this? A lesser sport, but also a sport of weakness, to put it mildly, very mildly. Growing up playing soccer, especially when I got to public school and stuff, I was referred to as a grass fairy. And, that's just the mindset of people here in the South. It's not a real sport. You even see on shows like Eastbound and Down, Danny McBride making the joke, second season, like, soccer's not a real sport. You don't have to have balls to play soccer. That's kind of how it's viewed here. So as far as fan base goes, it's going to be very American style at the games, it seems like, just based off what I've seen so far. So what to expect from the coverage? You're going to see the wave in the stadium. You're not going to be hearing, actually with the Hispanic, Mexican teams, Argentinian teams, you'll see a lot more, the Brazilian teams. But as far as these European teams, PSG, Inter, stuff, the fans are going to be mostly American fans. I doubt you'll see a lot of European, Italian-centric supporter clubs at these games. It's going to look more like a training match than anything. But I think the clubs are out here because of the prize money. You're going to see people, teams, clubs actually going for it. So it's going to be an interesting tournament, and we'll see. One thing I saw yesterday was PSG and Atletico, and both teams fielded a pretty strong lineup. So we'll see what Inter decides to do, what Kivu decides to do, and how seriously we take this tournament. Up first for us is Monterrey, or as you would hear probably American announcements, or if you're from the States, from the South, how we would say it's Monterrey. But Monterrey is a Mexican Liga MX club. I wouldn't say they're on the tier of Club America or Chivas or Pachuca, Pumas. These are, whenever I think of Liga MX clubs, these are the top ones. Monterrey is, nothing slouch about them, but they're not on those tiers of those four teams, at least for me, being raised in the States and being close to a bunch of Hispanic people who really appreciate Liga MX and watch it all the time. Monterrey, though, is a club that has some players that, we might be familiar with. There's a good 6 or 7 players, albeit they're older now and they're in their 30s, but that have played prominent roles in European football. Few former Serie A players. Carlos Salcedo, he's a defender who, 6, 7, 8 years ago was very prominent on the Mexican national team. He played for Fiorentina and Serie A. Pretty decent player. Hector Moreno played for Roma. Again, under player, 6, 7 years ago was pretty prominent in Europe and the Mexican national team. Lucas Ocampos, who played for Genoa and Milan, following that same story of pretty prominent, 6, 7 years ago in Europe and whatnot. Now playing for Monterrey. And they also have a couple bright or former players that were being thought of as, future bright and upcoming players in the Spanish national team. Sergio Canales and Olivier Torres, or Oliver Torres, I think is how he goes by. I think Canales played for Real Madrid. He was thought of as the next big thing. I remember when they announced his signing, it was kind of like, ushering a young player in to take over the throne. And then Oliver Torres, I just remember him playing on FIFA. He was one that, you get as a young player, FIFA 2015, whatever, 2014, I can't remember exactly which one it was, on your career mode, and he would become a baller after a few years. So interesting there. And then Jesus Corona at one point was, the future of Mexican soccer, a little older now, never really panned out. But he is on this squad. And then, of course, the big name, Sergio Ramos. So not slouches here, Monterrey. So we'll see how we stack up against them. And kind of just to wrap this up, we're gonna bring in kind of a couple of things of what we're looking for. So here's the 3 things I'm looking for Inter in this match against Monterrey. First things first. What will Christian Kivu change? We talked about him bringing that 3-5-2, not really changing the formation too much. What is he going to do different than Inzaghi, though, out of this formation? Are we going to see a little more dynamism? Are we going to go 3-4-1-2, 3-4-2-1? Are we going to stick with that 3-5-2? Like, what will Kivu bring differently to Inzaghi's formation? Because I think, teams have figured that out. You can definitely see with Sergio Conceição. He kind of was the first one in the Supercopa that figured us out, it seemed like, this season. Sit back. They're not going to be able to break them down and then hit them on the counter, and it worked every time for them. Juventus did it under Thiago Motta a couple times. Napoli, I think Inzaghi got found out. So what can Kivu do differently to unlock games and open games? Is he going to, not be swinging the ball around as much and just hoping that we can cross it in and latch on a cross? We'll see. That's another reason why it's exciting. We'll see what Kivu can bring differently than what Inzaghi brought. Number 2, what I'm looking for in this match is our new signings. Rumors are Peter Sucic is going to be starting and Luis Enrique. What are we going to see from them differently? That's why I'm wearing the Croatia jersey here. Big hopes for Peter Sucic, especially after the last Croatia game. The Croatian national newspaper, magazine, whatever, huge praise for Peter Sucic after their 5-1 win over Czechia. Lots of hype coming out of Croatia for this player. They're saying he's the heir to Luka Modric in this paper. From the highlights I've seen of him, he reminds me more of a Fabian Ruiz, which we saw in that PSG match. Reminds me more of that type of a player, which is very exciting. Hopefully someone that can come in, kick Mkhitaryan out of the squad, bring new life, bring new energy, bring something different. Very exciting to see Peter Sucic. And yeah, this is my Croatia Euro 2008 jersey with Daniele Prancic. If anybody remembers him, really fell in love with him in that tournament. His career didn't really pan out after that. He played for Heerenveen and the Dutch league. Actually, after the tournament, bought his own contract out to force a move to Bayern Munich. And then his career just kind of stalled out there. Lots of promise after Euro 2008, Daniele Prancic, but just never really panned out. But big hopes for Peter Sucic. And then, Luis Enrique. We'll see what we get from him. Is he going to be a wingback stalwart for us for years to come? I've seen reports he's going to start on the left. I've seen reports we're going to give Dumfries a rest and he's going to start on the right. We'll see what he brings to the table. I don't know too much about him. I watched Uncle Sharma's video on what we can expect from him. And I've heard other people talking about him. But till you see him in the flesh and see him play, can't wait to see that. So that's number 2. And then number 3 thing I'm looking for in this match against Monterrey is, how are we going to approach this tournament? Is this going to be like an early preseason type thing where we are playing a lot of backup players and giving our starters rests and letting the team kind of grow and learn Kivu's system before we fully integrate and start? Or are we going to go for it all and try and win this tournament? If you look, and we'll be able to know just based off the formation, or not the formation, the players that Kivu names in his starting lineup in this match against Monterrey. But if you look, that PSG Atletico game, both teams named their pretty strong starting lineup and whatnot. And I've seen, several different clubs doing the same. So hopefully, we'll get kind of a taste of what Kivu and this club, what the board management, if they're taking this tournament very seriously or not. So big things coming out of this match. Always exciting for an Inter match coming forward. Last thing I want to mention, PSG did beat Atletico 4-0. They've won the last 2 matches they've played, competitive matches, 9-0 total. over those 2 games, 5-0 over us, 4-0 over Atletico. I think we're seeing a team that is the best team in world football. Unfortunately for Inter, we hit them when they are on a high right now, and it couldn't have been worse timing for us to meet them in the final. But it wasn't a fluke. It looks like that they beat us that bad. This team is the real deal, and they have depth everywhere, and they're playing great football, and they have some of the best players in world football. So yeah, that's going to be the team to beat in this tournament. Let's see how Inter does. Guys, I appreciate all the support. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Sorry I took a couple week break, but had to do what I had to do. As always, guys, Forza Inter.